Val and Savory, who founded the Savory Institute and created holistic management back in the early 60s, recognized that for us to make real impact in communities, both those that live and breathe off of livestock, which would be in these seasonally dry areas around the world, and commercial farms in those same areas, have increased opportunity for success when they are managing financial, social, and ecological all at the same time. When those things were combined, and they were combined with intention, with intentionality, there was an incredible increase in success in those communities and in those farms. Our focus really is to be able to bring visibility to that. And then Huggins, who represented the Holistic Management, Africa Center for Holistic Management in Zimbabwe, is one of those leaders who have been leading those efforts in that country for the last 10 years. So the opportunity really is to begin to recognize that what is happening in communities, what can happen on farms, can be something that really embraces the idea of livestock and beef for purposes of increasing livelihoods and making something viable that in times past has not been. I wanted to also, in terms of hope, sometimes you would read some of these stats that I'm going to read here quickly, and you would say to yourself, that's a lot of challenges or that's a lot of negativity. But the fact is, when we recognize that the FAO says that over $40 billion a year annually is in essence lost because of land degradation, to me, as an entrepreneur, I say that's a huge opportunity. And then where the UNCC's fact sheet says that, in essence, natural resource management is the result of a $6.6 trillion a year deficit. If we all in this room or at this conference had the opportunity to really address these challenges, we would solve and create opportunities that would be unfathomable. For us, it is recognizing that when we bring these three things together, we bring hope, and a significant amount of hope. So holistic management, more than anything else, which I think at times, for you guys who have heard about it in the past, has been relegated to a grazing scheme, and that is as far from what it is. It is a planning process. It doesn't address practices, nor does it address outcomes. It actually gives farmers, it gives communities an opportunity to plan the outcomes that they want, to plan the practices that they think will create the most possible impact. And that process has proven to be effective over the last 40 years. Right now, it's being practiced in over 40 million hectares of land globally. And currently, just in the first 9 months of this year, we were facilitating this process with over 1,500 practitioners, as well as impacting 2.8 million hectares just this year. And so this process itself recognizes the opportunities and the complexity of bringing all those three things together, the ecological, the financial, and the social, and then gives a framework to be able to address those things in a way that is most relevant to that farmer at that moment in that opportunity. And it is powerful. And when you see communities as the one in Zimbabwe, or you see ones that we'll be talking about in the future in Argentina or other places around the world, you recognize that it's something that has not only proven to bring out the best in those communities and in those farms, but it works. And it works in such a way that creates real financial outcomes. This is the framework. The framework starts with recognizing that each farm or each organization has a context that needs to be defined. We go into the underlying ecosystem processes so that we recognize that if the ecosystem processes, the community dynamics, the water cycle, the mineral cycle, and the energy flow are not working effectively, then ultimately the decisions that are made on the farm will not create the most possible outcomes. And so we then talk about tools and what are the different factors that we could use to be able to implement that. But all this is brought together in a context to give the farmer, the rancher, the pastoralist the opportunity to embrace it in a way where they can discover what will be the things that will be best for them in that context. And then we give them testing questions. Testing questions are ways to be able to test that what decisions you're trying to make in your context will create the best possible outcome, from cause and effect to what we call a weak link, both in the social, biological, and the financial systems. Marginal reaction, gross profit analysis, energy and money source, sustainability, and society and culture. All of those are addressed within a framework to give the power to the farmer in that moment. And then management guidelines, things that we would pull from other systems and processes that we may learn from different and other practices, from organizational leadership and marketing and all the things that come from that. And then to lean into our planning procedures, which is focused on holistic financial planning, focused on land and livestock management and planning. And then, of course, the one thing that farmers are doing better and continue to need to do is manage their natural resource base, which is they truly are grass farmers, right? Without grass, we are not going to build healthy livestock. And the intent's to continue to create that strong natural resource base so that you then get the outcomes that will be incredible for all of us, especially those who believe in beef and believe beef as a real opportunity to feed 9 billion people in the future. And then we have a monitoring process where we actually do something that is very unique to holistic management. We assume we're wrong. We assume we're wrong, which means that we immediately engage in paying attention to what's happening so that we can make changes that will then create the outcomes. And so those all together is a framework that allows a farmer, or allows an organization, a family, to be able to create the best possible opportunities for them to achieve the outcomes that they want. The 4 insights which is really what is mostly known for Alan and his discovery was the first one, which we've been talking about, all things are holistic. The second thing was the brittleness scale, and I won't get too much into that, but it's the idea, as we saw, that there are areas in the world, those seasonal dry areas where the map was showing, that in essence the only thing that can be farmed or grown in those areas are livestock. And livestock are key to the regeneration of those soils. They are symbiotic. And so when you take livestock off those soils, you are going to deteriorate and degrade those soils. So the more livestock that we can have that's properly managed in those contexts, we believe, the Savory Institute, and we've got years of experience of it, will regenerate soils, create the opportunities for more livestock so that we can feed 9 billion people. And those processes have been, as we've continued to tell, proven. Now, in a more humid environment, which was less brittle, there are some underlying ecosystem processes, the bacteria, the microorganisms in the soils that can break down those plants that you don't need livestock to do that. In the seasonal dry areas where it's very brittle, you need the livestock because you need the moisture in the rumen of the animal to be able to pull that process off. And the next 2 is the predator-prey connection, which he discovered as a wildlife biologist, which is, as you see those large herds of herbivores that moved across the plains in Africa, the Serengeti, which you would see like the currently going on, which is the migration of the wildebeest, or the great buffalo herds, which are estimated to be 40 million buffalo across the Midwest and the upper Great Plains in the United States. If there were 40 million buffalo, why do you think that the farmers today that have been continuing to crop and grow farms in that area have such fertile soils to begin with in that area? Because there has been an enormous amount of impact from animals who have been there and then were evolving in that landscapes. And so that relationship of the predator-prey never allowed those animals to stay in any one place long enough to be able to become sedentary, which would then degrade those landscapes. So our planning processes help to be able to give farmers an opportunity to move those animals in a way to be able to regenerate soils. And then plant recovery time. We do not talk about rotation. We talk about giving the animals, giving the species, giving those different species in that environment the opportunity to be able to recover for the outcomes that we all desire. So these are just pictures of a couple of those different herds. And we've talked about the ecosystem processes and the role of the large animals and being able to create the the outcomes that we've all discussed. I'm going to skip that video. And then these are some pictures of just some of the herds and places around the world that we're managing in North Dakota, in the United States, the Northern Great Plains. This is in New Zealand, a herd of about 20,000 sheep in the South Island. This is in Hawaii, where we're managing a pretty large herd. And all of this is a part of the process, which is one of our planning processes, which is holistic planned grazing. Again, the idea of being able to manage the complexity. And what's interesting about this process of managing this complexity is that it gives us the opportunity to do it all in a single chart. And that chart is just an example of what we do in managing the movement of the animals, the species that we want to manage, the outcomes of those species, and then even the time associated to the farmer or the rancher. So we build that all into a plan so that the farmer's family is taken care of, that the farmer's animals are taken care of, and that the soils are taken care of. And that then creates the outcome that gives that short-term and long-term sustainability, which is all needed in all of our contexts. And then this is just an example of how we customize it to be even relevant to those who are not literate and are looking to manage information as well as animals in contexts where they're not going to use a very complicated chart. And this is in our Wangi community, which is in Zimbabwe. And one of the ladies who's the community manager of what's going on there is actually telling us and showing us of how they're managing the animals and managing the recovery of the plants and managing the movement to be able to create the results that they want in that community. And then, of course, this is just showing you how simple it is and how much of it a family exercise it is, right? So it really is a family affair. All the different organizations that we're a part of really come from a very intimate connection to both family, to the land, and to future generations. These are just pictures of some results. This is in northern Wyoming, where we've seen real increase productivity and the opportunity of more grass. This is a fence line photo, one being continuously grazed on one side, the other being planned. This is probably what's most famous that's been going around in Alan's TED Talk over the last 3 years. This is in the land in Zimbabwe, 10,000 acres, that literally was just sandy soil that had been converted back to productive grasslands. And that was over about a 3 to 4 year period of time. This is in the Karoo, in the desert, where the amount of rain is less than 300 millimeters a year. And on the right side is livestock that's continuously grazed, and then on the left side it's planned. And that is the only difference. There is no seeding. There is nothing else of inputs that are going into that, even though that can be tested and used in the right context. But in this one, it just shows from left to right of what could happen if you manage effectively to create outcomes. I had the pleasure of going there a couple of years ago and spending time with the third generation of holistic managers. This was Alan's first client in 1961. And it was an incredible, actually moving experience to have 22-year-olds walk up to Alan and say, I am here today because you worked with my father back in 1960. And it was incredible. I've had the opportunity to be in conversations like that globally. And this is one of those first farms. So we truly, truly believe that in terms of tools and processes and planning, that the opportunity to create real impact can happen, and that we need more animals on the land, not less. And we're very committed to that. And properly managed, we recognize the increased productivity that comes from managing landscapes like this could result in 2 and 3 times the amount of livestock on the land. So in a place like Brazil, that's a big, big solution, right? So you don't need to deforest because I believe currently the amount of livestock that can be managed on the current landscapes is less than what's being managed. And the opportunity is that way globally. And we continue to see the opportunities to do that, which means, as you all know, if you're increasing productivity 200 to 300%, that's increasing the profitability of those farmers and allowing them to do things they were not able to do before. Sustainability is innate in that kind of context. And then, of course, it continues to create a reason for that community to exist. So as we've all experienced, and this has happened globally, where there's a big amount of moves from rural areas to urban areas, we need to keep people back on the land. We need to keep people back where their traditions are as meaningful as what we can imagine reading in a book. It is important for them to continue to be and to be a part of something that truly is a livelihood that's meaningful and sustainable. This is in the Sonora Desert in Mexico. La Inmaculada is one of our hubs, and this was in 2009, and this is in 2012. And this is just another picture of how we were managing these herds. Savory Institute's mission is to promote this large-scale restoration of the world's grasslands, and we do it in three ways. Healing the land, which you saw. Empowering people, so we come alongside people. We're not there to be able to tell them anything that they don't know, other than to give them a process to plan how they can make those greatest impacts on the land. And then we remove barriers, so we work in policy or work in markets to where we can give and continue to create unparalleled entry to have opportunities for farmers to be able to achieve all that they want to achieve. And these are some of our projects from Inner Mongolia in China and Colorado, in Swaziland, which is in southern Africa, the Sahel region in Africa through Heifer International, Abu Dhabi, where we're a part of a Greening the Desert project with one of the sheikhs, and then, of course, in Mexico. And then our hubs are these locally led, locally managed entrepreneurial organizations that are geared with local credibility to make an impact in a given region. So the Savory Institute doesn't go set up a hub. Savory Institute partners with individuals who want to become a hub of excellence in being able to provide support to farmers in a given region. And 90% of those hubs are rancher or producer-led hubs. So they have farmland, they have ranch land that they've been and are continuing to manage holistically to show as a demonstration and a learning site for the opportunity to make real impact in the region. So we say this in our Savory Nordic Hub, these sheep can save the grasslands. And then we also say this from Ovis 21, which is probably our greatest example. They just won a contest within our network with a donor. And we were able to just walk to them and give them $50,000, which was to be able to say what a great work they've been doing, and a donor had recognized it, that they had nothing a part of. They were just a part of the network, and they were doing this incredible thing. But they said, we are seeing grasses come back and thrive, something we would have not have dreamed of 20 years ago. They had built the 6 million hectare campaign, which is a campaign focused on a program, a scheme, to be able to attract farmers that could practice and use the planning process to be able to restore their lands. And as a result of being a part of that, they then get access to markets like Patagonia Inc., who will then sell that wool or buy that wool from them in a way that was unavailable to them in the past. So we're a part of building those kinds of programs and being able to give those kinds of opportunities to be able to offer those kinds of incentives when possible. So those hubs continue to offer that training, the consulting and monitoring in those areas, continue to provide services to be able to help in the future monetize ecosystem services, be a part of the marketing and the ongoing implementation of their products and services in that area, and continue to be rural entrepreneurial incubators. We want solutions to be local. We want solutions to come from the ground. We want solutions to be something that is grassroots, that's meaningful, that's powerful, that creates real impact. It's not about us coming to a conference and talking about it. It's about real stuff happening on the ground with people who really need it. And so these goats can save her village. and then these are the hubs in different places around the world. I wanted to show this picture because it's similar to the one we started with, and it was just uncanny to me how at times what we choose to do without unknowingly doing it is in essence erase the culture, erase the history, erase the connection that brings us all here. We cannot separate ourselves from the land. The land is us, and we are the land. And as we continue to manage it, with the soils as being that important to it, it will, and I believe, continue to be something that will sustain us financially, that will provide us the ecological regeneration that we need for the future, and be something that would make us all proud to be a part of. So these cattle can truly save their traditions. Thank you.